Greetings from Castle Goring, from Mickey, Aurora, and from me. Well, today I have a very, very special. Uh, it's so special that, of course, not everybody is going to be interested in it, but my favorite priest, Father Ben Eden, was made the priest administrator of the Shrine of Our Lady of Walsingham on Saturday. Oh, I was so proud of my darling Ben. He's such a great guy. So I'm going to post one or two pictures, and in fact, this was the invitation. And then I'm going to post one or two photographs. And then at the end, I'm not quite sure how it's going to be done, but there is going to be either a link or just added to this for the whole of the sung Mass, which was so beautiful. The music was wonderful. Just magnificent, everything. Just so splendid. It was transcendent in its beauty. You know, I don't know why people think that beauty is not spiritual, because it really is a gift from God. And the whole Mass was a study in beauty. Of course, Ben and his father both know a great deal about music because his father is actually a proper musician. So, without further ado, I am going to ask Sean to post a few pictures to give you a taste of the magnificence of it all. It was so transcendent, I can't tell you. Everything was just perfect and beautiful and wonderful, and made you appreciate life and the gift of life and the beauty that worshipping God can be. So we will do that, and then afterwards I will plunge in with the rather, shall we say, more secular matters. So, this is the courtyard at the Shrine of Our Lady of Walsingham. Quite beautiful. Oh. And I ought to say, before plunging in, that, of course, Our Lady of Walsingham is the Virgin Mary. And to those of you who know their history will know that Catherine of Aragon went and prayed to Our Lady of Walsingham, hoping to give birth to a male heir who lived rather longer than her male heirs lived for never happened. But so now we plunge in with the most important thing that is happening in the world at the moment. And then we will get on to the rather more trivial stuff, which is entertaining, has levity, has controversy, but is really not so important. Evgen says, Lady C, what do you make of Biden giving permission for Ukraine to use ATACMS, which are, for those of you who don't know, and I have to say, I am hopeless with anagrams, it's Army Tactical Missile System, which means that Biden is giving permission for Zelensky to use missiles that are American and that the Americans have to manage. Therefore, America is actually entering the war on the side of Ukraine, actually against Russia. Now, America is not an ally of, there is no treaty of alliance between Ukraine and the United States of America, nor is there a treaty the way there was, say, the Triple Entente for the First World War between Britain, France, Russia. There's no such treaty. So the United States of America and the British, we have Keir Starmer and Kemi Badenoch as well, wading in support of this. When we have what is being called, if this proceeds, could be the beginning of the Third World War, because has Russia attacked America? Has Russia attacked Britain? Has Russia attacked France? Because we have those rather insignificant creatures called Keir Starmer and Emmanuel Macron, who don't seem to understand the realities of life. And Biden, well, let me say what Donald Trump Jr. has said, that Biden is intent on making it impossible, I would actually have said difficult, as opposed to impossible, for President-elect Trump to settle the war in Ukraine. Why would Biden do this? Well, first of all, of course, we need to remember that in certain quarters, the Bidens are called the Burismas, and that so there's that element to it. It's also Trump's ambition is to get the Nobel Peace Prize. So Biden is trying to ruin the possibility of him getting the Nobel Peace Prize by trying to drag America more deeply into the war that is being fought by Ukraine and Russia, so that Trump will find it impossible. Well, Biden might not have thought this through very carefully. In fact, I gather Biden can't think at all. He's so demented. He suffers from real dementia. Hence why Kamala Harris ended up replacing Biden as the presidential candidate for the Democratic Party. So this is deeply ominous, and I would urge everybody who has any at all common sense to write to your political representatives expressing your strong disapproval of the intensification of the war by the outgoing United States American administration. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. But I suppose anything to spoil a Trump success to the extent that they would involve the rest of the world in a third world war. I mean, what planet are these people living on? I know that they think, oh, well, it's not going to affect us in Wichita, Kansas, or Manchester by the Sea in Massachusetts. When there's a third world war, it's going to affect everybody, including the citizens who are and the illegal immigrants who are resident in Wichita, Kansas, and Manchester by the Sea, and everywhere else in the United States of America. I cannot believe that such a reckless intensification of a war that really should have been brought to an end years ago when Zelensky and Putin wanted to bring it to an end. And Boris Johnson, the pathetic little poodle, went on behalf of the presidency of the United States of America and scuppered the peace deal. I'm interested in peace, only peace. And if anybody is stupid enough to think that this is a war that any side can win, if we get into Third World War, everybody is going to lose. So don't think there's going to be a victor and there's going to be a series of losers. Everybody is going to lose. There are some victories that come at such a high price that they are losses. I refer people who don't know anything about history or literature to Pyrrhus, hence the word Pyrrhic victory. BL says, so now we get on to the lighter stuff. Lady C, I saw your tweet on X about Harry's visit to Canada over the weekend. Can you tell us more about what your bongo drums are saying? Also, as an old-timer on your show, thank you. I know you don't watch other YouTubers, but can you please, big block capitals, comment on Neil Sean's latest extended show, which comes as close as possible to saying that Archie's was a surrogate birth. Since your masterly book, my poor head is swelling, Persecutors or Victims is held up as the beacon of light on the subject, I trust you won't be offended if I ask you to comment. Well, I'm not offended. And by and large, as you're absolutely right, I don't look at other YouTubers. I do actually sometimes look at Dan Wooten because I love Dan and I appear on his show. And I love Dan and he's sort of like a sort of extended family. So I look at him sometimes. But I did look at what you suggested. And I have to say, it was fascinating. It was about 20 minutes long, and it was really interesting. But I won't answer the second part of the question first. I'll answer the first part of the question first. Yes, I did tweet something about Harry, which my bongo drums beat the message out to me. Oh, and I'm going to quote a more extended version of the bongo drums message. Harry looked very nervous. He actually came across as haunted, terrified, desperate to please, as if he'd just been released from rehab and was no longer wrapped in the cotton wool protection that drugs afford addicts. Meow. Or is it an observation? I'll continue. My impression is that it was all forced enthusiasm, possibly because it has been made very clear to him that Meghan is not welcome and her presence will be a blight on the games if she does attend with him. Let's see what happens. I understand she's determined to come no matter what. And as we all know, what Meghan wants, Meghan gets. Well, of course, there are all sorts of rumours going around because I was also told that this begs the question if Harry and Meghan are really on the rocks, or are they still rocking it with the old hustle and grift, coming out with conflicting versions. They're going to get separated. They're not going to get separated. They're desperately in love. No, they're going to get separated. They are separated. But it's all for show. I don't believe a word out of Harry and Meghan's mouth. There is nothing they could tell me, including my own name, that I wouldn't check, just to be sure that they weren't providing misinformation. They are two of the most misinforming people that it has ever been my displeasure to run across. Now, I did see Neil Sean's show, and I've forgotten the title, but it's something about Prince Archie, and he comes as close as it's possible to come legally to assert that Archie is the product of a surrogacy. Now, I have to tell you, I have done a little bit of ferreting around, and Neil Sean is quite a well-established, in fact, he's a very well-established royal correspondent. If he is asserting as nearly as it is legally possible to do that Archie is the product of a surrogacy, you know that barring some tremendous diversionary tactic, the bubble is going to burst sooner rather than later. I have my own opinions on the matter. I'm the first person who wrote about this in a book. I wrote about it in my Harry and Meghan the Real story, which was published in 2020. And I updated it in the updated version of Harry and Meghan the Real story, Persecutors or Victims, earlier this year. I know what I believe, and I'm not going to particularize here and now what I believe, but I will put it this way. Whatever happened was so highly irregular that you have to question the motivation, and one could actually almost say the connection to responsibility and reality that that couple possesses. Let me leave it at that. But yes, I did see it. Thanks for bringing it to my attention. I suppose the part of the comment that are they still rocking it with the old hustle and grift? Or is the bubble about to burst? And if so, when? I wouldn't hold my breath if I were you. These things sometimes take a lot longer to be resolved than people realize. However, if the marriage really is as rocky as some of the rumors emanating from California assert, notice how I put this. Oh dear, isn't it going to be interesting? Mike Tyson is going to end up looking like a baby sucking a lollipop compared to the fisticuffs that are legally going to be thrown and that are going to entertain us. But I wouldn't hold my breath too closely, because there's many a slip between the cup and the lip. And you know, sometimes people are, whether they are happy together or not, they are so closely tied up with each other in matters that need to be protected and concealed, that neither one actually dares to, shall we say, make the break. It will be interesting to see what happens. All I hope is that the Germans are not right, the German royal families with their affairs. Don't mind the British, but the Germans, I think, would be definitely on a bridge too far. Stephanie Redden says, hello, Lady C. If you were to go over Prince Harry's bid to gain access to Lord Christopher Guy's and Sir Edward Young's emails, I would gladly listen. Best wishes to you and yours from historical Virginia, USA. If I remember correctly, Sir Edward Young has now been made a lord. I could be wrong, and I haven't checked it. It just popped into my head. And I'm not going to take a break from this to check it. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. If I'm right, I'm right. But I seem to think he has been promoted as, and of course, Sir Christopher was promoted to Lord Guyt. So before answering, I'm going to read out what Katie Cat says, and then I'm going to answer the whole shebang in one thing. Okay? Katie Cat says, hi, Lady C and your beautiful fur babies, from an American and her corgi. I hope her name isn't Susan, like the late Queen's first doggy. Could you please discuss has-beens never-ending lawsuits, and if you think the judge's recent order to give him, his attorneys, access to palace emails could enable him to further harm his family? Will he be able to then put them in another Val book or video? Much love from a long-time fan. Have a blessed day. Thank you. My understanding is that there is absolute outrage that Harry has persisted in this line, because I have been told that it is treacherous, he is irresponsible, he is uncaring, he is callous, cold, heartless, and doesn't care about the damage he would do to the monarchy or its reputation or its the way it handles matters for the well-being of the state as well as the well-being of the monarchy. This, now I will say, Mr. Justice Fancourt has made an order for some emails to be revealed. Not all, some. I actually have to say, I am very discomfited, and it was when I sued the Daily Mirror and the lawyers came down here and actually trawled through all of my emails. I'm afraid that is wrong. Discovery is one thing, but intrusiveness is another. People should be allowed to have certain things private. The courts have been, many of the judges, incidentally, would have loved a privacy law, but they would have loved a privacy law that allowed them to violate everybody's privacy. And they're still doing. I'm actually astonished that Mr. Justice Fancourt was ill-advised enough to take this decision, because it is a real intrusion into state matters, confidentiality at a state level. All states have to conduct business that sometimes should not be revealed to the public. He is removing that veil. He partially, but he's allowing the other side to go on a fishing expedition, which his justification, his being Mr. Justice Fancourt, seems to be, well, if they have nothing to hide, let's allow them to sniff around. But even if there is nothing to hide, and there usually is something to hide, even when what you're hiding is just your embarrassment or the revelation of the way you do things that actually will not ultimately impact upon the outcome of the case, but will embarrass you in the process. You know, it's rather like being photographed sitting on the lavatory seat, taking a dump, is really what it is. Everybody does sit on the lavatory seat, I hope. And everybody certainly does clear his or her bowels, I hope. But who wants to be photographed doing it? I think it's outrageous. I'm going to say what the bongo drums are telling me. It's an embarrassment to the monarchy that Harry, the king's son, can be using the king's courts against the monarchy, which the king is the head of. It's an embarrassment to the king. It's an embarrassment to the monarchy. It's an embarrassment to the courtiers whose loyalty has been to protect the monarchy, even against the errors of those who are participating in the exercise, whatever the exercise is. It is a betrayal of his father. Harry is viewed as a true traitor now. He is using his knowledge as an insider to force the betrayal of confidential negotiations for ultimately his own enrichment and to satisfy his lust for power and to give him a reason to have a cause to get up in the morning. He'd be actually better off not getting up at all. Maybe he should just stay in bed all the time. Also, of course, David Sherborne is applying pressure, all of which can ultimately damage the monarchy. It's outrageous. It's judicial encroachment into state secrets and the family's secrets. It's unacceptable. There has to be and should be a balance between that which is confidential and that which is private and that which is allowed to be revealed. And he has driven a coach and horses through it. Harry is one of only two of the plaintiffs who are now still pursuing this case. 39 have settled. Only Harry and the former Deputy Labour leader Tom Watson, whose reputation, the less said about that, the better. Let us see what happens, because the whole thing is outrageous. It's absolutely outrageous. But we are living in very interesting times. Too interesting for comfort. The lines are constantly being blurred and shifted. And in a society where nobody knows what the rules really are and what you can and can't truly do, and where your freedoms, what is the extent of your freedom, and what is the extent of your liability and your responsibility, people become terrified. But is this a real attempt, or is this judicial overreach, or is this Mr. Justice Fancourt basically knowing that there is nothing that's going to emerge that will help Harry's case? It will be interesting to see the outcome. Let me tell you something. An awful lot of the judges in this country are not that pro the old established order. They are pro the new established order, which is them and the politicians. I've been saying it for years. Let's see let's see the outcome of this. Bear Didit says, Catherine's been in the public eye for 23 years. Never once has she been accused of lying or bullying or anything. It's not hard to see Meghan Markle is behind these attacks, but certainly Meghan Markle's supporters are behind these attacks. And certainly Meghan Markle is behind the primary attack, which is that Catherine is a racist. Because Amid Scabies couldn't have got it from nowhere. He got it from Meghan Markle, and he also must have, because remember also Prince Harry, let's not forget Prince Harry instructing Jason Knopf. he and Meghan were assisting in the writing of Funding Freedom and Finding Freebies to make sure that his and her involvement was never came to the surface. So you see, Harry, on the one hand, when he's putting the boot in, is perfectly happy to expect that his dealings should be kept confidential. But on the other hand, everybody else's are to be just opened up the way Meghan has opened up everything for both Harry and herself. Barbara Luce says, your opinion on Alison Pearson and her knock on the door. Well, to those of you who don't know, Alison Pearson is the Telegraph journalist who the police visited because she actually put up a photograph mistakenly thinking that it was pro-Palestinian, and it turned out to be not Palestinian, something else. And she made a comment and she got it wrong. And the police, I think, showed up a year later. Well, I need to ask one question. Why is it that the police are pursuing non-crime hate incidents? Because it says non-crime hate incidents. So if it's not a crime, why are the police bothering to show up on people's doorsteps? Well, if you're burgled, sometimes they don't come for 4 and 6 days. Now, I'm not blaming the police. I am blaming the regulators and the lawmakers. I am blaming the politicians, whether it be at national level or local government level. Disgraceful. And let us not forget as well that this non-crime hate incident nonsense, and to me it is nonsense, because I think people should have the right to be hateful. I think people should have the right to be offensive. They certainly shouldn't have the right to say that somebody should be harmed. But if they don't like something or someone and they want to disparage them or a group, I think they should be allowed to. What they shouldn't do is seek to harm that group. That is inciting to violence, and that is already against the law. So all of this policing and censorship, and why are the police wasting their time on matters like this when they are so overloaded already that they don't have the time to actually catch real criminals. So they are visiting people who haven't committed a crime because it says non-crime, so it's not criminal. That's my opinion on it. And I think people should be more robust. I think that if you do not have the ability in life to have vigorous debate, I think there is and can be no true freedom. People are supposed to be able to disagree with each other. People are supposed to be able to be offensive to each other, to be nasty to each other. My right to hit you ends where your nose begins. But remember the old childhood thing? Sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. What has society degenerated in the West to the extent that that old childhood adage is now sticks and stones will break my bones, and names will absolutely cripple me. What tear left I? I mean, the world seems to be going mad. Whatever happened to robustness? Whatever happened to the fact that it's okay to dislike something or someone? It is okay. I actually think prejudice is undesirable. I mean, I come from a culture where colour prejudice is virtually unknown of any significance. Yet we are caught up in a world where everything is regarded with suspicion. How is that conducive to a harmonious and progressive society? Curious Cat says, question, dear Lady C, what do you think of Tina Brown's hit piece on Princess William? Is she being controversial to encourage readership? Well, of course, she is Princess William. But I noticed that you've put it. You're, I think, the first person who's ever called her Princess William. But of course, she is technically Princess William. She's Princess William, the Princess of Wales. So yes, very droll of you to do it. So it obviously right there tells me that you have a certain degree of knowledge as to how these things truly work. Tina Brown's hit piece on Catherine, I wouldn't have said it was so much a hit piece on the Princess of Wales. As Tina Brown is a professional, very successful, very capable professional journalist. She waited till the 99th hour to turn against Meghan. She's still not turned against Harry. Read what she said in the Palace Diaries and what she says now. Tina is joining the flow. Let's put it that way. And she has been controversial, and she persists in being controversial because she is now doing a podcast and she wants to make money for herself and garner influence because she had a lot of influence. She doesn't really have has not, I should correct myself. She hasn't had a platform for a while. She's now creating a new platform for herself. She has gone from the mainstream media to social media because she's finally sussed that's where the action is. Clever. She's clever. But she's still singing Harry's praises. Tina knows which side her bread is buttered on. Let me put it that way. She is extremely strategic and she is extremely opportunistic. Tina is somebody who appears to be very sensationalistic, but it's very calculated, it's very strategic, and it's always for her ultimate professional benefit. So she is being controversial. She courts controversy as long as it's safe to do so. But she's very professional and she's very good at what she does. And I'm not criticizing her, I'm simply describing. She's certainly a lot more successful than I've been. So you could say she's been far cleverer than I have, or you could say that I have not been quite as strategic and as opportunistic and as expedient as Tina. Certainly, I started out with better connections than she had, so if I'd wanted to sell my soul, I could have done it. I didn't. So, on that note, I will end up with what JJF says. Meghan crying on the stairs to mimic Princess Diana's crying on the stairs is just psycho. She's so manipulative. Will Harry ever see this? I suspect that Harry sees what the squeeze makes him see. Men like Harry, and I will lump my father in with that, with married to women like Meghan and my mother, are basically gutless sellouts who are mama's boys and who transfer Oedipus-like a lot of their mama to their wife. And having sold out themselves, they will then sell out everybody else if it suits them up to a point. But they will only sell out other people to the point that it is comfortable for them to do. Now, my father betrayed my brother, one of my sisters, and me repeatedly over a period of years. But he never betrayed our little sister, never once. He'd stand up for her. So if you see where I'm coming from with this, most people have a red line. And my understanding is Harry does have some insight into his situation now. Whether he will ever be able to be man enough and develop enough character to do what he should do is something else again. But I gather he wavers, and my father wavered as well. And I gather Harry wavers. And it has to be said, the victims of narcissists, and Harry, even though he can be a nasty piece of work in some ways, is nevertheless Meghan's victim. Just as how my father, who could also be a nasty piece of work when it suited him, was Mummy's victim. And it doesn't alter the fact that they are victims. They are victims. And they would have been entirely different had they been married to someone else. Of course, though, you have to say what attracted them to these monsters. Excitement, drama, the desire for a more interesting life than they can provide for themselves, and the desire to have somebody break the rules for them, because basically these men are in many ways cowards. They love the thrill of psychopathy. They simply don't have the courage to get in touch too closely with their inner psychopath to the extent that they would lead the charge. These are basically followers. That's my take on it. I could be wrong. Somehow I don't think I am. But certainly my information is that Harry wavers between, and has for some time now. You see, when you are totally taken over by someone and totally besotted with someone, and you hand over your fate and your destiny and your authority and your discernments and your judgment and your heart and soul to another human being, when you are thus submissive with the dominatrix, it's very difficult to actually regain sufficient autonomy to be consistent. And also, men like that, they love the thrill of being dominated and controlled. It makes them feel that they are suckling on mamma. These are men who, in some ways, have arrested development. Until, of course, the teat from which they are gaining the sustenance is delivering something so sour that they don't want to swallow it. And at that point, then all of a sudden they become rebellious, but only usually for a short while, because men like that are like fish on a line. And the clever narcissist, or the conniving narcissist would be a better way of putting it. In fact, let's just say the narcissist, because they're always conniving. And they're usually cleverer on a conniving animal level than their victims. Otherwise, they wouldn't have the victim. So the victim is their dupe. And though when it suits them, they don't see. But when they feel the pinch, then they see. But for how long depends on how much character they have. And usually their character, no matter what they started with, has been so eroded that unless it's absolutely fundamental to them, they will not. Well, unless it's absolutely fundamental to them, they will go along with the game. So I hope that answers the question. And now I'm going to say thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been of some interest to you. Please keep the questions and comments coming in, because I can't do this without your input. Okay? So I need to know what you would like me to be addressing with you on your behalf. Thank you so much. Godspeed. And I hope you enjoy Ben's Mass. Absolutely beautiful. And if you have truly enjoyed this, would you care to like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and happy watching. Bye-bye.